Hello everyone, welcome back to the C Morning Show right here on C Today. Yes, we're ready, set for our first, well, this is the discussion of the day. It's time for us to use our running shoes and let's just run out of here, Paul. All right, we're gonna talk about running, folks. We have two amazing guests in the studio today who play a huge role in shaping the running culture in Indonesia. First, we have our very own C Today's news presenter, Yasha Chatab, right here. Hello, how are you? How have you been? He's also the founder of Indorunners, which is Indonesia's largest running community for the past 16 years. Now, he will talk about how the Indonesian running scene has evolved and how marathons are helping to boost fitness culture, especially right here in the greater Jakarta.
Oh, he's a spry young man when
Indeed.
Indorunners first started.
Yes, he's a legend, by the way.
As well, joining him this morning and us as well is Kelompok Lari Anak Bangsa, our club CEO and organizer of the upcoming Jakarta Running Festival, Dicky Wijaya, who will also be sharing about the challenges of conducting such a huge event. Outside of that, we'll also talk about his vision of making this festival one of the biggest in Southeast Asia. Good morning, you guys. Thank you for joining us here in the studio.
Thank you. Did you guys run coming here? No.
Well, it is a holiday, so the streets are probably empty.
Well, good, like with the fresh air.
We should have.
I want to start off before we get into the running festival itself. So, Yasha, I mean, obviously, Indorunners, not just the biggest, larger running community, but the first of its kind at the time. And we know this was probably around, what, 2000, late 2000s, early 2010?
2009.
2009, okay. So I remember around that time there was this boom, like running clubs started to form everywhere, people were running. And then fast forward about, I'd say, close to a decade, and other things started to take over, including the pandemic, and cycling, everyone was into it. But over the last couple of years, it has really shifted back. Not just that, it has, I would say, regenerated or exploded once again into this huge thing where everyone's back into running again. Tell me a little bit about the evolution of running culture in Indonesia, because we do know that it's fairly new compared to other countries when it first started, and what you think about this whole, for lack of a better word, how it's kind of cycled back again to it being such a big sport again.
Yeah, it's like a snowball effect. You know, we're talking about running as a culture, and it's really interesting because you're here.
Correct.
Okay, let me try to go back to 2007 or 2008. So there was an event near Pacific Place, right? So there was this guy named Paul Palele, or P-Double.
Oh, you're going to bring that up.
So Paul was an ambassador of a shoe brand that collaborated with Apple. So our friend Paul here was running shirtless around Pacific Place.
I remember those days.
I lost the challenge. Basically, there was a challenge, a team challenge, and I lost, and that was that.
So our old Paul Palele, he was doing that with 4 riders.
Yes, correct. Leather pants. That was the challenge. Wear leather pants and no shirt.
We should get a footage of that.
Can we? Like producers?
So that's how a culture started.
Correct.
Of running.
Yes.
No, because I knew about it. I learned about that, and I was like, wow, you can do that. Not with the leather pants, of course, but it's, you can actually track it.
Yeah.
So there was, I think there was a pivotal point in running, I think globally as well, that for once, even without the GPS technology, you're running and you know how far you go.
Correct.
And you can compete with other people, or you can know how many kilometers other people are running.
You can track your progress for once.
Right? So that was once, and then the GPS watches starts. They start producing them. People start wearing them, and then there's also the modern era of running in Indonesia, which was Bali Marathon 2013, which you, Carol, was the MC.
Yes, I was, and he was like, "Are you running?" I was like, "No, sir. I haven't known nothing." Yes.
So Carol was also part of it. So everybody here is actually part of the running culture. So this is an ecosystem that we are all building together. And so like what you said, Paul, after the pandemic, it really had boom across the globe, actually, not just here. And this is social media era. A lot of Gen Z are getting into it and posting a lot of content, sharing, and it just kind of multiplied.
So I guess the pandemic, was a blessing in disguise for running, because a lot of people were looking for activities you didn't do in a group, outdoors, and then just running picked up again, just like that.
Yes. I think, you remember, Carol, the first Bali Marathon, it was actually very hard to find participants. Now it's like sold out.
Right.
Yeah.
Like that.
It was like peanuts and elephants, right? People just want to get that, the ticket numbers and whatnot.
Yes.
And it's also as a cross generation, I think. I mean, we see our generation are looking fit like you gentlemen, and people are like, okay, I mean, if they can do it, and of course, the younger generation want to follow. And I see now a lot of these not only public figures, I think people that loves running, they go to all these marathons across the world. And I'm like, they're in Tokyo, they're in like Boston, they're always there.
Yes.
But of course, they need to be here on your event, okay? The Jakarta Running Festival. Let's hear about this. What is their initiative? And why do you, want to launch this event? And what it sets apart than any other running events that is here in Jakarta or Indonesia?
Okay, I think it goes back to what you just said, Carol. Like during pandemic, everybody went cycling, right?
Yeah.
And I think the one thing that it started in a lot of people is the need to be active, the need to be outside, the need to socialize while being active.
Correct.
But again, if you notice, running is much more inclusive. It's AKA cheaper to get into as a hobby.
Yes.
Well,
even the running shoes is very expensive too.
Yeah, but you can choose different.
Sure. Yes.
Right? So I think the reason we started this event is because we're a bunch of runners, all of us, like about 10 to 11 of us. And unfortunately, when we want to run a good event, typically we'll go abroad.
Yeah.
The closest one would be Singapore, and you're right. People will go to Tokyo, will go to Berlin, London, etc. And if in Indonesia, if you want to run a good race, everybody wants to go to Bali for maybe a marathon, and they deserve the accolades, right? They've done this for more than 10 years, and it's typically run very well. So that's why we wanted to do this in Jakarta. We wanted to bring a good event. It's not that there's no good event, but I think majority of the running event in Jakarta, typically it's you focus on the running itself. But we do know that running is beyond running itself.
Yeah.
You go to the expo, you shop, and we love shopping.
Of course.
We shop. And when you finish running, you wish like you can hang out and then in a good place, buy some food, relax, recover.
Hence that's why it's the festival.
Hence the festival. That's why we wanted to create an event it's more than just running.
Yeah.
It's more than just running.
And you can bring your loved ones. I mean, parents running, children can just, wait.
And it's not just a one event thing. I should bring up that Indorunners, obviously there's Indorunners in Bandung, where my family used to have a home. So whenever we used to visit, I was actually invited by the Bandung contingent of Indorunners, come on out. And they had their own culture. So it's like their route was planned for their nightly run, was planned about where they were going to stop and eat later that night. And it was part of the culture. It's not like you just run and go home. Because I've been to other run clubs in Jakarta. They're like, no. We'd pick a different place every time. So today we're going to run like a 10K, let's say, and we're going to finish at this like kind of famous eatery where we're just going to hang out and eat. And part of, I think, what is unrecognized is the fact that once you actually finish the run, it's that community part of it. It's like you're hanging out with those that you just shared this experience with, and you get to hang out, you know each other better. And sometimes, because of this, every time I visited Bandung, I felt the need to get in touch with those same people, because I remember the last time was so much fun. They took me uphill running. We found a great coffee spot at the top of the mountains. It's all of these things put together. Now, obviously, racing events are important, and you've been part of, and I guess you alluded to it, Dicky, as well, that many people search to other countries for running events, partly due to the fact because running events, I would say, was at its infancy in the early 2010s, and I would say that there are still racing promoters at the time that were still in the process of learning. So what would you say, not just the role of running events play in a runner's life or somebody who wants to incorporate running in their life, but what do you think is making running events outside of Indonesia that much more attractive than running events so far here in Indonesia?
Okay, that's a very interesting question, Paul, because I think, in my experience, I ran several marathons abroad as well.
Right.
And some actually are not as great as they're thought to be, right? I'm sure if you go to Berlin Marathon, right, it's amazing. New York Marathon is amazing. Sure. But I went to, I'm not trashing on Sydney Marathon or anything, but I went to Sydney Marathon last year, and this year they're actually a World Marathon Major. They're part of that World Marathon Major series. Right. It's an elite a series of marathons, right? It was, I have to say, Jakarta, well, Indonesian running events is actually have more heart, more vibe than that one that I just mentioned. Okay. You get a lot of things in the goodie bags. You have
that's very Indonesians.
Right. it seems
love
like
that.
we are at this
We love
point
that.
in which so many runners have gone abroad and they have gone to the best ones,
Yeah.
best ones in the world, and they go back here to Indonesia telling everybody, oh, di luar negeri,
Right.
Yeah.
when you go run abroad, you will have these things, ABCDs,
Right.
but not every single one is like that.
I see. So it's not necessarily
Yeah.
that the world standard has gone down, but we are actually catching up.
I think a lot of our events
Right.
are beyond that. We are actually much better. And in terms of participation of the communities, of course you will have the classic ones. You got the Berlin that just had their 50th anniversary last year. 50 years of running through Berlin. Of course the people are very familiar with it,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But Jakarta, the first one was what, 2013?
Yeah.
And, and until the last one, people are still honking, because they, honking at the
Yeah.
runners.
Right.
Because
Right.
we are blocking their road. So we just have to be very mindful about that. And
Yeah.
and I think that's something that the Jakarta Running Festival is very much aware. They have a certain cutoff time.
Yeah.
Because people have lives. People have to go to work. Right?
Yeah.
You can't block their road for an entire day.
Sure.
It's crazy.
But
Yeah.
how do you think that we can make this into a culture? If you were saying, let's take a case like Berlin. People know it symbolizes, their city. How can we make the Jakarta Marathon or Jakarta, this running festival as symbolizes Jakarta? Is this a part of us?
Yeah.
Well, I think because, partially with Berlin, it has been going on for 50 years.
Okay, yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's about getting people to work together, right? They have to understand that, like Yasha said earlier, we're blocking their roads. In Berlin, during the marathon day itself, the shops are closed. So nobody works until after 12 p.m.
Okay.
So that kind of helps.
Sure. Yes.
So, but I hope they're still getting paid.
Right.
So, for instance, here, along our route, if we want people to come out and support the runners, we have to make sure, we have to work with everybody around the route that nothing should be open. Because if something is still operational, then people would still have to go to work.
Right.
You can't say, oh no, you don't work.
So operating
Yeah,
is
there's no road. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, so that takes education, and I think it will take time.
Yes.
And it's a problem that I think all stakeholders have to figure out, not just us, but also the government, the provincial government, the city, and the private sector as well. How can we work together so that this becomes an event that Jakartans can be proud of and everybody can support?
And non-runners, I should add as well. Like you look at the New York City Marathon, people are in their apartments like cheering on the runners.
Yes.
It's become part of the culture.
Yes.
It's because events like this also generate economy for the city
Correct,
as
that's
well.
it.
So
Yes.
they recognize this as an
Yes.
important part of it. Now, we know race organizers. We know there are many challenges to creating a race, especially, for example, race route. That would be one that I hear about all the time. Like, what's planning the proper race route, making the cutoff time so that people are at the right spots when roads have to be opened again. Apart from that, what are some of the other challenges that you would face creating such an event like this?
Okay, so the logistics of the event itself, the routes, the closing of the roads, sharing of the roads information, that's one tiny problem. I think one of our biggest challenges is also educating the runners that not everyone can just run marathons. It is an inclusive sport, but you can
Totally
just
agree.
wear up your running shoes,
Yeah.
buy running shoes, wear your running shoes, and then go out
Yeah.
and run
Yeah.
a marathon or half marathon.
Yeah.
You can do that for a 5K or a 10K. That's educating the runners itself. One of the reasons we set a very harsh, I'd say, cutoff time, 5 hours for marathon, because at the end of the day, if you go out to Jakarta at 9 a.m., it's really hot.
Correct.
Yes.
Right?
Humid too.
It's very humid too.
Yes.
I mean, if you're only if you just reach, let's say, kilometer 30, you still have 12 kilometers.
Yeah, this is you flagging off at 4 a.m. by
Yes,
the way, right?
4 a.m.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
You still have 12 kilometers to go.
Sure.
More, whether that's walking or running, it's still going to be tough.
Correct.
But that's what we're trying to say. Like, you have to be prepared when you want to go run a marathon.
Right.
Yeah.
And please, the reason we set it at 5 hours is not because we don't want slow runners.
Yeah.
No, it's because, like Yasha said, we can't close the roads. We want to give the best experience.
Correct.
That's why we have to close the roads, but we have to share with the other users as well.
Yeah.
So if we start opening it at 8:30, certain sections of our routes, then people can still go to work.
Right.
Then everybody's happy. Nobody's honking. Nobody's like, like in Berlin, we know, like always say like zupa zupa. And here, it could be edited what they scream at you, right? Because you're blocking the roads.
Yeah, here you see it going viral on social media.
It
as
takes
well.
out your
In fact,
mentality, definitely.
I blame social media for this because everybody thinks they could run a marathon because they see everyone else doing it
Yeah.
as well. It's something that people train a whole year for to actually do.
Well, I mean, speaking about that now, Yasha, I mean, people are now, following the trend, especially, running shoes, running attire right now has become like a fashion trend, right? But for those who really wants to start, let's say not marathon first, let's start with 5K, and then you do 10K, and then you elevate after that. What should we prepare ourselves?
I think preparing, first of all, you just have to, a lot of people run to be fit, but you have to be fit to run. Really.
Like that.
At first, you have to do that. And you just have to pick out the best events that you think are out there.
Because there's techniques, right? Because people always
Yeah.
think, I just go around the block and
Yeah.
you're running.
I think running events are actually good for someone to set a goal to. Like if you're just starting out in January, maybe that's your New Year's resolution, right?
Yes.
All right, this year I'm gonna start running. Okay, all right, maybe if you want to start your own 5K. Your first 5K, you maybe want to do it in right after Lebaran. I think that would be a good time to train, and then you start training for it, not just registering because all your friends are going.
Yes.
Agreed.
I think
Yes.
I think the best strategy.
They're
is
like
to do-
FOMO.
Yeah.
I don't get the medal.
There is this whole
Yeah.
FOMO
Yes.
happening, yeah.
I think it's you just have to be mindful of your own state of health.
Correct.
And then you have to be prudent with the way you spend
Yeah.
your money as well. I mean, if you're just started out, you're not like, you don't want to get one of those carbon plates, right?
Yeah.
Because they get a bit they're quite pricey.
Sure.
And it's not for beginners,
Yeah.
So you just kind of have to.
I think
find the-
people should know what lane they should start off in and
Yes.
kind of progress according to their own individual capabilities. And I have a hot take here. Why don't we stop giving out medals to everyone? Give the medals to the first place till third place winners, but give some sort of compensation, like a nice
But that's
ribbon
what
or a
made
wreath.
people want to go
But that's the
towards the
problem.
finish
That's why
line.
clips are going viral of people not accepting the cutoff times
Yes,
and things
that
like
we
that because
saw that,
everybody feels
yeah.
we deserve a medal because
Right.
it's just a piece of hardware. But people should realize that running is more important than just the hardware that you get around your
That's
neck.
right.
Anyway, that's just my hot take. But anyway, I want to talk about back to the Jakarta Running Festival. You plan on making this not just a leading running event in Indonesia, but in Southeast Asia. Tell us a little bit about your vision behind it and how you plan to achieve it.
I think what we see is, look, at the end of the day, Indonesia is the largest country in Southeast Asia. By default, we have the most runners, the most number of runners. Perhaps most of them are beginners or intermediate. But it's heartbreaking when you go to other countries' marathon and you see the number one foreign participant is always our beloved country. And
Are you saying
The
Singapore Marathon?
number of
I ain't
participants, really.
saying anything.
I think he's referring to Singapore Marathon.
And the number of runners, Indonesian runners, that go to other countries is more than a lot of the races in Indonesia. So, races in Indonesia, we have a lot, right? But majority are sized between 3,000 to about 6,000. There are more than 6,000 Indonesian runners who flew to another country to run events, yes. Not necessarily marathon, so it's 5K, 10K, half and everything. But from that alone, we see, okay, there's a potential.
Yes.
Why don't you run in your own home country?
Correct.
Yes.
For whatever reason it is. And I think because in a way we see Indonesians can support our local event, and then as we get the standards better, we increase the standards, then we can start inviting other countries to come run with us, not just Bali.
Yeah.
See, with Bali, I think one of the factors that helps them is it's Bali.
Sure.
Yes.
It's like the moment you arrive in the airport, you're like,
That's right. I mean,
yeah, you're like you sigh of relief.
you cannot deny that's the feeling.
Yes. And after you run, you're like, okay, fine, now it's time to enjoy Bali.
Enjoy Bali.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, how do we do that in Jakarta? That's what we're trying to crack. Okay, Jakarta, at the end of the day, running through Jakarta is actually very nice. Where else in Indonesia you run through, like, let's say Sudirman, all tall buildings. It's
beautiful.
It's beautiful,
Yeah.
right? So that's what we're trying to sell. We're trying to find a way so that other countries also come and run Indonesian running race.
I totally agree.
It's like
And
midnight race, maybe a midnight marathon.
No, honestly, despite all the criticism that we've mentioned, race promoters have been doing much better jobs in recent years. People have actually commented how great the running routes are now. They're very well planned. It's much safer now. Safety is a big thing as well. The one thing that people can't do anything about is the weather, because despite it being lack of pollution on a Sunday, it does get hot. But I always say, here's another hot take: if you don't want to experience the heat, finish faster.
That's
Hey, I'm
right.
sorry, it's a bit harsh, but hey, you don't want to experience the 9 a.m. heat? Well, finish under the cutoff time. Anyway, let's talk a little bit in regards to the date. So this is happening when?
So this year, the event itself from 23rd to 26th October.
Okay.
We do it on 2 days. So on Saturday will be the 5K and a half marathon.
Oh, you're splitting it.
We're split. Yeah, last year we started splitting it. So Saturday is 5K and half marathon. On Sunday it's 10K and a marathon.
That is an amazing. I don't know why this has never been done before, or other than you guys doing.
I
splitting
think
it.
there's another race outside Jakarta.
Right.
To split it up as well.
It's actually a great idea.
Yeah. Well, we want people to. So if you run 5K on Saturday, you can still run 10K on Sunday, and you get
Bonus.
the medals. And we try to design that you can kind of connect the medals.
Oh, no
Okay,
way.
I'm running for the medal. Forget you, Paul. I'm running for that.
I'm just kidding. I think medals are a great motivation for people.
Under 5 hours.
I think it's
Oh, you
great.
can
Oh,
do
not the
5 and 10
marathon.
first.
Well, you're going to be missing a piece of your medal.
It'll be Paul pulling me.
We can put our medals together. I'll run the marathon then.
But I gotta say that the quality, of course, is already out there. I think there's no reason that foreign runners doesn't run a marathon in Jakarta. I mean, it's just a different experience.
Yeah.
Especially
course.
now. I mean, like 10 years ago, totally different.
Yeah.
You know, the level of organization, the quality is different. Now it's just top notch.
I did Jakarta Marathon 10 years ago, and I would say that it was like, this is people say, well, it was your first marathon, you shouldn't have run it in Jakarta.
Yeah.
But compared to like comparing notes to people running them now, it's like, it's just so different. I had buses going by me
Yeah.
at like early in the
And you
morning.
kind of have to go left and right.
Correct. We have to like
That's
cross
the
and look
experience.
around. But one thing that I totally loved was running through the city, because every day we have to drive through traffic, and it's like I own these roads now. For one day, I can actually run 42 kilometers throughout the city.
That was 10 years ago, a decade ago. That's when Paul's like shirtless, right? Those were the days. Well, Dicky and Yasha, thank you so much for being
you
here
so
with
much.
me.
Good luck.
Thank you
Congratulations
for having
and
us.
good luck. Yes.
Oh, by the way, real quick, forgot to ask, how many participants are you opening this for?
So this year we are opening it for 24,000
24,000.
across 2 days, 4 categories.
Amazing.
All right, so yes, so we will have our traffic report during those 2 days for you ladies and gentlemen. And
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much for being here with us.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we're taking a short break right now. When we return, we will have a story from Papua that is renowned for its natural beauty and rich cultural heritage. However, in recent years, the region's creative industry has begun to thrive to support the local economy and nurture young talents across the area.
Now, one of the prominent sectors is the fashion industry, particularly in communities supported by the Papua Youth Creative Hub and nurtured by the State Intelligence Agency, or BIN. I'm going to have a look at this story coming up after this break. Stay tuned.